have eyes that work.
There, and way to go back. Oh, it's going forward. There you go. Okay. Great pleasure to be here. Who is here and it's the first time that they hear about Revita Blue? Good. So a lot of people is the second time. Because I have a lot of questions for you. Okay. Just before I get into Revita Blue itself, I just want to share with you, I'm going to go through a lot of technical information, but to me, what I'm doing is really telling you the story of your body, and sit down and just listen to all this information. You don't have to learn all of this. You don't have to take notes. Nobody is intended to, this is not to make you stem cell experts at the end of this lecture. And at the end of the day, I can tell you, you will be way more successful sharing this product, telling somebody, you know what, I've heard a lecture, this product is amazing, you've got to try it, than trying to just share with them stem cell sciences. Yeah. So it's not about giving you information that you can go back and regurgitate and repeat to other people. What I want, my objective here is to give you enough information so it kind of sinks in you that this product is absolutely foundational and amazing for you. And so that's what I want to share with you. So if at some point it gets a little bit too technical, just listen to it as if I'm telling you a story. So Revita Blue is all about stem cells. Now I'm sure you've heard about stem cells. If you go on the internet, you go into magazines, you go and you listen to the news. When we talk about stem cells in the general world of stem cell treatments, it's always isolation of stem cells from a source, which can be the umbilical cord, it can be your bone marrow, your blood, your fat tissue. So isolation of stem cells, manipulation in the lab, and then re-injection into your bloodstream and into a tissue. And we do this with the general understanding, heavily supported in science, that adult stem cells have a great regenerative potential. We do this because it can repair and regenerate your tissues. The question that we never ask, and the thing we never talk about, is that these stem cells are there in your body as you're sitting on your chair right now. So if they have such an amazing potential, when you take them out and you re-inject them, then what about when they sit right now in your body? And when we understand what is the natural role of stem cells in your body since the day you're born, when we understand this truly, and if I do this presentation properly, I hope you will get that understanding. It truly changes our understanding of health and wellness, and I think it will even lead to a change in how we practice medicine. Little ambitious, we won't do this at the end of today, but I think this is where it's going in the years to come. So let's start by describing what is a stem cell. The best way to understand what is a stem cell is to talk about all the other cells in the body that are not stem cells, that are referred to as somatic cells. They are cells that have one specific function. They will never transform into something else, and they will, to a large extent, will never multiply. So it's the cell, for example, of your retina that will respond to light, never to anything else. If one day you become deaf and you tell somebody, speak louder in my eye, you won't hear anything. They do one thing, that's all they do. This is the only thing they will do forever until they die. They don't transform. At the other end of the spectrum, at the other end of the spectrum, you have stem cells. Stem cells are the contrary. They are nothing. A stem cell does absolutely nothing in your body. If you want to pinpoint to the function of a stem cell, it doesn't do anything. Its function is in its ability to transform into other types of cells. Traditionally speaking, stem cells have always been known. If there's anybody here that has studied medicine, still to this day, this is what you're told. Stem cells are precursors to blood cells. They do transform into red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. But that's their limitation. They cannot become other types of cells. Until early 2000, scientists started to observe that stem cells from the bone marrow, they were becoming blood cells, but they could also become heart cells, liver cells, brain cells, other types of cells. And so that was really the beginning of what we have today in terms of stem cell science. Now, let me just open one parenthesis. We are in 2000, what are we now? 2019. Man, it moves. 2019, we go to Mars. We can inject into your blood microscopic cameras that will go and film your blood. I mean, we have a degree of scientific sophistication that is amazing. And just in 2000, we discovered that since humans have been humans, we have stem cells that repair, and we've never seen it. I mean, how did we discover this? And we discovered this in the same way that we make any scientific discoveries in our history, by developing a tool that has made that observation possible. We cannot watch stars if all we have is a microscope. We cannot discover bacteria if all we have is a telescope. How did we discover bacteria? Somebody made a microscope to count thread densities in textile to do quality control. And one day they put a drop of water and they saw things swimming in water. Not only did this guy discover bacteria, but from that point we discovered that bacteria was the basis of cholera, tuberculosis. I mean, it completely changed the course of history, discovering bacteria. I think here is the very, very same process. Before, another example here that is interesting. Imagine here that we've got in this world caterpillars and we've got butterflies, right? If you've never seen a caterpillar transform into a butterfly, would it ever cross your mind that one leads to the other? The only way to observe this would be to tag the caterpillar, and later on you see the butterfly with the tag. It's the same kind of thing that led to the discovery of stem cells. It's a protein extracted from a jellyfish called green fluorescent protein. It's a protein that is spontaneously fluorescent. Because it's a protein, it's easy to derive the DNA that codes for this protein. You can take that DNA, inject it in the nucleus of a stem cell. Now you've got a stem cell that is nothing, it's just a stem cell, but it makes the green fluorescent protein. All the cells that will derive from that stem cells will make the green fluorescent protein. So if they transform into, let's say, brain cells, you've got brain cells that are now green. So it allows you to follow the stem cells and see that they're the one who transformed. So what did scientists do? Very simple experiment. They irradiated mice. It's not going, there you go. Irradiation of mice, injection of stem cells, fluorescent stem cells, then injury to a muscle, and then they observe the process of tissue recovery. So if you inject a toxin in the muscle of the leg of a mouse, and you do this process, 6 weeks later, you see that the leg that was paralyzed has now mobility, but you look at the muscle and it's green. All came from cells from the bone marrow. If you do a heart attack, you see stem cells migrating into the heart and becoming heart cells. Same observation in the skin after a burn, same observation in the kidney, same observation in the lung, and same observation in the pancreas. This is an insulin-producing cells in the pancreas that naturally derived from the bone marrow. So I won't have the time to go into all this detail later, but understand the basis here. Your stem cells can leave the bone marrow, migrate in the pancreas, and becoming very natural insulin-producing cells in your pancreas. I will go further. At the age that we all have here, maybe at the exception of maybe a few in the back, all of us, we don't have, I point to them, they're like 5, 6, 7 maybe. All the rest of us, we don't have in our pancreas cells making insulin that we're born with. They're all gone. They've all been replaced by this very natural process. That is the key to understand. Okay, so from the understanding that stem cells can become cells of other tissue, in the early 2000s, the first observation was with the brain, with the liver, and with the heart. Understand here, we're at a period, 20 years ago, where stem cells only become blood cells. So the idea that stem cells can become other things was lunacy. It was, we were ridiculed with this idea. But based on this idea, what we thought is that, well, if stem cells can become brain, heart, and liver, why not pancreas, skin, lung, and other things in the body? It would be way more bizarre that the body would have a mechanism to make stem cells become brain, liver, and heart, and not the other tissues. So on the basis of that information, we published a paper in a journal called Medical Hypotheses, in which we simply propose stem cells constitute the natural repair system of the body. So fast forward now 15 years later, and here's what we know. And what I'm going to show you, just understand here, there's thousands of scientific studies that are all documenting various aspects of this whole process. This is not just an idea, this is what is happening in your body. Anytime you have an injury or something is not working properly in your body, the affected area will release compounds that are very well known today. These compounds will go to the bone marrow and will trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So the stem cells will detach from the bone marrow matrix and will get into the blood circulation and will start to circulate. Within 3 to 5 days after an injury, the number of stem cells in circulation will increase anywhere between 3 to 10 times. These studies were done with heart attack, bone fracture, stroke, burn to the skin. So when you do this in animals, you can see the increase in the number of stem cells in circulation. Now, as stem cells circulate in the bloodstream, they don't know where to go. They don't leave the bone marrow with the understanding of where they're going. So how do they find where it is that they need to go to repair? What happens is that starting on the second day, the affected tissue will release another compound called stromal-derived factor 1, SDF1. It's not relevant, it's not part of the exam at the end of the day. But it releases a compound so that when stem cells circulate everywhere in the bloodstream and they go into the fine capillaries of the affected tissue, at that area, the molecule that is being released touches the stem cell and it triggers the migration of stem cells out of the blood into the tissue. And when they reach the tissue, they still see where this compound is coming from. The stem cells will crawl literally to the site of the injury, and then upon contact with cellular debris of that tissue, stem cells will become cells of that tissue. Isn't that a beautiful process? So in the same way that you have an immune system, which means I cut myself, and then bacteria will get there, you'll have an infection, so you will release immune cells from your closest lymph node. They will circulate everywhere, but they will go where? Exactly where you've got your cut and you've got a bacteria. And the immune cells will go exactly beside the bacteria, which between you and I, for an immune cell to go right beside the bacteria in your body would be like for you to go and take a walk and meet one specific person in China, randomly. Impossible. It's very, very well orchestrated, very, very well coordinated. That immune cell will reach exactly where the bacteria is, will release compound and kill the bacteria. It's your immune system. What we have here is the repair system of the body.
Wow.
To think that in the year 2000 we've discovered a new system of the body is mind-boggling, but that's really what it is. So in that system, your repair system, there are 5 main steps. The release of stem cells from the bone marrow, the circulation of stem cells into the bloodstream, the migration of stem cells into the body, into the tissues, and then the proliferation and transformation of stem cells in cells of that tissue. The part that has been the most studied is the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. And the reason is simply that we know these molecules right here. We know these molecules that are being released by a damaged tissue. So we can inject them and mimic this whole phenomenon. So we have tools to trigger the release of stem cells. So the consequence of releasing them is an increase in the number of circulating stem cells. So scientists have studied the link between the number of circulating stem cells and health. So let's look a little bit at this. I'm going to go through a few studies, and I just want to make sure here that I am not implying directly or indirectly that stem cells, the clicker is not very compliant. So
Speaking of.
Yeah, speaking of compliance, these studies are not meant to imply that RevitaBlue will do this. It's just that in medicine, we don't study health, we study diseases. So I'm picking up key studies to illustrate the phenomenon so that you kind of get it and you see how it works. but I could pick any one of hundreds of studies beyond this phenomenon. So the two key conclusions from what I'm talking about here is that more stem cells in circulation means that more stem cells are available to participate in the process of tissue repair. So you've got two people with a broken bone. The one that has more stem cells in circulation will repair better. That's simple. If in any one individual you can increase the number of stem cells in circulation, that person will be able to then repair better. Let me show you two studies to illustrate this. I don't want to go into the detail, I don't want to be too technical, I just want you to see what has been done in science to lead to these conclusions. So this is a study in which scientists counted the number of stem cells in 500 individuals at risk for cardiovascular problem. Okay. So they quantified the number of stem cells in circulation. They did not do anything. We all have a different number of stem cells in circulation, just like we have a different number of red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. We're all different. The range will be anywhere between 0.01 cell per microliter to 5 cells per microliter. So there's a broad range. So, and I would venture to say, you've got all the range here in the ability of people to naturally repair. It depends a lot on where they are in that range. So these people are all in that range. So they monitored during 1 year cardiovascular events, angina, heart attack, arrhythmia, whatever. And then a year later, they correlated the number of stem cells that people have naturally and then the expression of heart problems, the occurrence of heart problems. So they separated these 500 people in 3 groups. People with a lot of stem cells, people with an average number of stem cells, and people with fewer stem cells in circulation. In the conclusion, as you can see, each time there's a line that goes down, right here. This is one person that had some type of heart problem. And we can see that people with fewer stem cells had way more heart problems. The conclusion was that the best predictor of cardiovascular health was the number of stem cells that we have in our bloodstream. Right now, it's your blood pressure and your cholesterol level, which gives you about 50% chance of being right. It's not very, very good. So as we move forward and we can develop quicker and cheap ways to quantify stem cells, I think it's going to move in that direction. Just counting how many stem cells you have in your blood will be a good way to predict your cardiovascular health and, quite frankly, the health of any tissue in your body. So next study. So that's just to show the difference between people with more stem cells or fewer stem cells. Now, the other study done at the National Institute of Health took mice in which they triggered a heart attack by blocking blood flow to the heart. Then they let them recover, and then they separated the animals in 2 groups. One group was control, the other group was an experimental group in which they injected those compounds known to trigger stem cell release. So the only difference between the 2 groups is that the experimental group had more stem cells in circulation. Is that okay so far?
Yeah.
Not too complicated? Okay.
No.
So in the experiment, they told me Vancouver are smart people. So in the control group, you can see severe scar tissue, no new blood vessels, 17% survival, and poor cardiovascular health. In the experimental group, they had, we need to inject stem cells into your clicker. So reconstitution of the ventricular wall, new blood vessels tapping in the other ventricles, 73% survival, and quasi-normalized cardiovascular function. So in a world where there's nothing we can do for heart attack, there's a study here published about 18 years ago telling us that putting more stem cells in circulation can really help the heart recover. Now, I won't go into the detail. That protocol, as it was done in these mice, cannot be duplicated in the same way in humans. But what this study is nevertheless making very, very clear is that we have the biology. If you put more stem cells in circulation, the body has the ability of using them and putting them to the process of tissue repair. Okay, now next conclusion from all this data. Oh, and I can show you, I won't go through this, I can show you very, very similar studies showing that putting more stem cells in circulation can help the improvement of various problems. I'm not telling you, take Revita Blue, it helps these diseases. All I'm telling you is that you will find in the scientific literature a link between a clear demonstration that if you put more stem cells in circulation, these conditions will improve, as published in studies. So the next conclusion, which is to me the most interesting, and the one to really remember, is that the corollary, fewer stem cells in circulation, will be linked to a greater probability of developing health problems. So you have more in circulation, you do better. You put more in circulation, you repair better. Flip side, if you've got fewer in circulation, you're more at risk to develop problems. So let's go into this a little bit, because to me that's the part that to me is called to change the way that we view health and wellness, we view disease formation, and consequently practice medicine. Today in the world, the way that we understand aging and disease formation, it's just a very slow process where we're born, we mature until let's say 4 or 5, and then from there we reach 20, 25 years old, peak health, and then everything is downhill, right? It's pretty much what we all experience. No. Exactly. You can change that.
That's right.
But what stem cell research is showing us is that it's actually not what is happening. What is happening is that health is a balance between two phenomena. You do lose cells every day, but you also renew the tissues every day. You bring back new fresh cells. So health is actually a balance between two phenomena. When you're young, you've got a lot of stem cells, so you repair very quick. But as we age, the red marrow that makes stem cells slowly transforms into yellow marrow or fatty marrow. So when we get, let's say, beyond, 40 something, the only bones that will still make stem cells are your flat bones, your ribs, your sternum, the pelvis, the skull. The rest, all your long bones, are no longer making stem cells. Wow. So as you age, you lose that balance. So there's a point where you cross that line where you lose more cells than you can provide for tissue repair. And that's when cellular loss gains ground. Let me make a very, very simple analogy. The previous one, where everything is a slow decline, it's like saying you're born with a bank account, we put a certain amount of money, we tell you spend it wisely. But what we discover is that no, your health is more like you've got a regular income, you've got regular expenses. As long as your income matches your expenses, you're fine. It makes so much sense. So that means that having fewer stem cells in circulation, crossing that line early in life, is what will predispose you to develop all kinds of problems. And the problem you will develop will be linked to various factors: your genetics, your past injuries, your exposure to environmental toxin, your lifestyle, your ability to rest, your diet, your exposure to physical stress, your ability to handle physical stress, your mother-in-law. All of this will be the pressure that is applied to you, and your ability to, you've seen this, you've seen people having the same injury and one heals much better. You've seen people been hit by life in certain ways, and some people appear unaffected, other people are crushed. We're all different. You're not learning anything here. We all know this. The key point is that whatever weakens us, this is where the lack of stem cells will show itself. So why somebody develops Parkinson's, somebody else has diabetes, somebody else needs a titanium knee. It's all these factors. Where is the weakness in the body? So if I continue with my banking analogy, it's like to say, we've got someone who cannot pay for his car, someone else cannot pay for their house, somebody else cannot pay for their health bills, somebody else cannot pay for their tuition fee in college. So we've got car problem, house problem, health problems, and education problems. But really, we've got just one problem, money problem. It just shows up according to different contexts. It's the same thing here. The common denominator is that you've got fewer stem cells, meaning that the weak spot in you cannot repair as well. That's where the problem will show up. There's one way to show that this is true. I can go and count the number of stem cells in the bloodstream of people who have developed a broad variety of health problems, degenerative type health problems, and count how many stem cells they have in their blood. And I should see statistically fewer stem cells in people who have developed problems. That's the hypothesis that we expressed, let's say, 10 years ago. And here's what we can find now in science. This is people with normal glucose tolerance, impaired fasting glucose, impaired glucose tolerance, and diabetes. It's the slow evolution toward diabetes, and this is the number of stem cells. You see a straight line. As people progress, they have fewer and fewer stem cells. When people develop kidney problem from diabetes, if you look at the people, so this is kidney function. So as the line goes up, you basically lose your kidney function, okay? So these are people with kidney failure or kidney problem consequence to diabetes, and if you separate them in people with a lot of stem cells and people with fewer stem cells, you can see that people with fewer stem cells deteriorate much faster than people with more stem cells in circulation. Here's another one. People who showed up at went to visit a doctor and complained for erectile dysfunction. Control patient. This is all their number of stem cells. So if I bring back the average, you can see that people complain of erectile dysfunction have on average a little bit less than half the number of stem cells in circulation. Now if I take all these people and I give them a test to establish their international index of erectile function, and I plot this with the number of stem cells in circulation, I have a straight line. There's a direct relationship. And this all true, it's not for erectile dysfunction, it's for vascular health, because that's what erectile function is all about. The same holds true for vascular health. Let me share one last one. I can have many. These are, okay, the graph, these are different types of stem cells. In two groups of people, okay, the formatting of the picture got lost here. So in blue, we've got chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, so lung problem, exercise, and baseline. And in red, healthy people after exercise and baseline. First conclusion, we can see that exercise releases stem cells. But if we compare healthy people with people who have lung problem, roughly about half the number of stem cells in the circulation of people that have health problems. I can continue like this and show you many, many, many conditions. The general conclusion is that people who have developed degenerative type problem have on average about half the number of stem cells that you have in healthy people. So what I'm working on right now is this overview, this meta-analysis of the scientific literature to see if we can establish what would be a threshold of stem cells under which we start to be exposed to developing problems, so that we can then establish the number of stem cells in your blood as a risk factor. Because when we start to do this, then we start to talk the language of the medical world, and then all that information starts to sink in. Otherwise, anyway, that's a different discussion. But it's just to tell you where we're going, with all of this. Okay, so conclusion, more stem cells in circulation, better stem cell function means that you are better able to repair, and you're also better able to maintain yourself. Because keep in mind again, and to me, I was going to say, keep in mind, we lose cells every day. I didn't have the time to go into this data, but we lose cells every day of our lives. Each tissue is at a different rate, and we replace these cells every day with stem cells. So it's when your income starts to be below your expenses, then you start to develop problems. So if I take back the banking analogy that I did before to express really what is the conclusion of all of this, is that today we define health in a very bizarre way. If I ask you what is health, in our society, health is the absence of disease. It's ridiculous, but that's what it is. Tell your doctor, I feel I'm going to have a heart attack in 3 weeks. I need 2 weeks vacation in Hawaii. You won't get them. Get your heart attack, and then you'll have 3 months. But it's weird, but that's how we work. If you don't have a disease, you will consider yourself healthy. You don't run anymore. It hurts to climb stairs. It hurts when you get out of bed in the morning. Your memory is not as good. Your sleep is not as good. Your vision is not as good. Your hair color has changed. There's just a lot of things that are not perfect. But because it's not a disease, then you're healthy. And we need to change that whole concept. There is such a thing as optimal health, which is making sure your body functions as optimally as it can. Okay, so in this whole context of banking that I was talking about before, it would be like saying Because today the best that we have in health is preventive medicine, is it not? To prevent the problem. It would be like saying the best way to be wealthy is to prevent poverty. Will you ever be wealthy if all you do is to prevent poverty? You will simply not be poor. And that's what our health system is all geared for. To make sure you just don't have a problem. We don't care about you being optimally healthy. You just want you to not have a problem. That's the aim of preventive medicine. When we discover the health system of the body, then suddenly it gives you the edge to go much beyond just not having the problem, but giving back the body its ability to reach optimal health. Good?
Yeah.
Don't you think that it's changing everything? Okay, so now, having said all of this, you should have a question in your mind. What can I do to have more stem cells? And that's where Revitable gets into the picture. So when I started this about 20 years ago, the big question was, I was working with this plant, it's a blue-green algae, and people were reporting all kinds of benefits, touching various aspects of human health. People reporting benefits on the heart, on the brain, on the liver, on the lung, on the pancreas. So the question was, what is this product doing? So we did many studies. We did a study at Harvard, University of New Mexico, McGill University. We got great data, but nothing that could really explain what we're seeing with this product. Until the observation that stem cells could become blood cells, brain cells, and liver cells, and all kinds of cells. So from there, we proposed that stem cells can become cells of various tissues, because in the back of my mind was, what if that plant stimulates the release of stem cells from the bone marrow? Once you've got more stem cells in circulation, they can go into any tissue that has a problem, so you should expect to have a broad variety of health benefits, and that's what we had with the product. So that's where all of this started some 19 years ago. And we discovered that indeed, that's what the plant was doing. 1 hour after consumption, there was a 25 to 30% increase in the number of stem cells in circulation. After discovering this, it was clear to me that it cannot be that after thousands of years of evolution in symbiosis with nature, with the environment, how can it be that there's only one plant having an effect on stem cells? There has to be other things. So we started to look at other plants, herbs, utilized or known in various parts of the world to be associated to a broad variety of health benefits. And a few years ago, 4 years ago, I started to work with a plant called sea buckthorn. It's a very interesting plant. Its Latin name is Hippophae. Most plants in nature are called or are named according to physical characteristics, what they look like. But there are a few plants that are known, or their name implies what they do. And this is one of them. Hippo means horse, Phae means light, it means shining horse. It's Alexander the Great doing his conquest in western China. He abandoned a herd of horses wounded in battle. He left them to die in a field of sea buckthorn. He came back a few weeks later, and he had a herd of vibrant and healthy horses. And a healthy horse has a shiny coat. So the plant was called shiny coat. Same observation was made by Genghis Khan, and then from there it got integrated into Mongolian medicine, Chinese medicine, Tibetan medicine, where it is used for cardiovascular health, lung health, the heart, but also the whole vascular system, wound, burn injuries, bone fracture. They use it for diabetes. So to me, when I see all of these, it means probably stem cell effect. So we derived an extract from that plant, we went tested it in the lab, and that's what we found. Almost 40% increase in the number of stem cells after 2-3 hours. So the effect is much bigger than what we had before with AFA. So we blended them together. So at the end, what we have, there are more plants, but the idea is not to go through all the science. So the ingredients are sea buckthorn berry, AFA, the blue-green algae that we had before, a very unique extract of aloe, a very unique beta-glucan. All of them support various aspects of stem cell function. I just want to be clear, because sometimes this is something that lingers in people's mind. The product does not contain dead babies' extracted stem cells. It does not contain pig stem cells, bovine stem cells. It contains plant that make you stimulate your own stem cells that you already have in your bone marrow. You release them every day of your life. When you release a stem cell, it goes everywhere in the body, and after an hour or two, if it didn't find a place where to go, it goes back to the bone marrow. And it's released after. You don't build them up in the blood. It's a beautiful, powerful system. So you release them every day. The only thing that these plants do is that just kick a few more out of the bone marrow, puts them in the blood so that they can participate to tissue repair. It's really that simple. So when people come later, well, I think we go into this very soon. So the benefit obviously supports the natural repair system. There's also, with the effect of the blue-green algae and the beta-glucan, supports immune function. With the siboptorn and the aloe, supports antioxidant protection. All of this leads to support healthy aging. Now that you understand the link between stem cells and healthy aging, then you understand. And the last one, I won't spend time with it, but there is a very interesting chemistry between AFA and siboptorn that will make a lot of people take Revita Blue and give it about 20, 45 minutes, and they'll feel, I just feel good. You know, it gives that sense of well-being. It does something to your brain chemistry that basically enhances the sort of the love factor in your brain. It affects the molecule called the molecule of love in your brain. Wow. Okay, so oftentimes we wanted to open to questions, but to save time, what I'll do is that I will just cover the questions that come all the time. So that way we can cover a lot of ground with questions in one swoop. So the first question that is the most common is, if my aunt, uncle, mother, sister, brother, grandma, whatever, has put whatever health problem here, can Revita Blue help? The answer is very, very simple. Stem cells can become liver cells, brain cells, lung cells, heart cells, retinal cells, skin cells, joint cells, cells of anything in the body. You put more in the circulation, whatever the problem is, this is where they go. So I have not done a study on how Revita Blue can help Parkinson, Alzheimer's, diabetes, any of those diseases. And we cannot, because even if we were to do these studies, you could not use that information for a dietary supplement. So it's pointless to do that kind of study. So what we studied was the physiological effect of a product, which is to put more stem cells in circulation. That's the only thing that the product does. The rest, your body does it. I know it looks simple, but it is really that simple. Your body has done that since the day you're born. All we do, we put a little bit more in circulation, and your body will use them in the same way that it has used them before. Wow. If I take Revita Blue every day, can I deplete the bone marrow? Will I weaken the bones? The answer is very simple. The answer is no. It's not simple, actually. But I'll try to make it simple. So the easy way, or one easy way to answer the question is to share, well, let's put it this way. Who in life, in our experience, releases a lot of stem cells every day? I didn't talk about it before, but when you do very, very strong exercise, you release a lot of stem cells. So any athlete has released a lot of stem cells in their lifetime. Do you know any Olympic athletes who one day walked on the street and just fell? That's it. That was the last stem cells. It doesn't happen. Nobody dies because they run out of stem cells. It's not something that happens. So we cannot release too many stem cells. One study was done a number of years ago for cancer treatment. If we irradiate and kill all the stem cells in an organism, the question was, if I have one stem cell left, can I reconstitute the blood and the bone marrow? And the answer was that 6 weeks later, the entire blood was reconstituted and the whole bone marrow was reconstituted from one stem cell. So when you have about 150 million, if you release 3, 4, 5, 6 million, you still got 145 million to do the job. One can do the job. Just to give you a sense here of the power of the bone marrow. But the physiological response to that question is to understand that in nature, cells divide with a process called symmetrical cellular division. The original DNA goes into each daughter cell, the copy goes into each daughter cell. I have 2 identical daughter cells. This is true everywhere except in the bone marrow, which is called a symmetrical cellular division. It's also called the immortal DNA strand theory, which is the 2 original DNA go into one cell, this one stays in the bone marrow, and the 2 copies go in the blood. And the reason for this phenomenon in the body is that if you were to, in your bone marrow, have a copy of a copy of a copy, just do this. Take a piece of paper, put it in the copier several generations, and you would have so many mutations. So it's to basically keep the pool of your original DNA intact in the bone marrow. So anytime you release a cell, a sister cell was left in the bone marrow. So the bone marrow maintains itself very, very stably during the life of an individual. Okay, can I get side effect? What happens if I stop taking Revitable? There's no side effect. The only real side effect that has been documented is joy. So if you like being grumpy, don't take the product. What happens if I stop taking the product? Nothing happens. You just stop having the benefits of having more stem cells in your circulation. There's nothing else. Like there's no dependency that develops. If you stop taking it, suddenly your bone marrow is sluggish. None of this has ever been seen over the past 18 years that I've been working with this product. But behind this question, there is something very interesting. It reflects again, Martine, how much time do I have left? 5? Okay. There is something that reflects what I was talking about before when I was saying we're used to look at health with our brain, meaning if something goes wrong, now I'm going to do something for that, and not realizing that 10 years ago, I was climbing stairs 3 by 3, 5 years ago 2 by 2, 3 years ago 1 by 1, 2 years ago 1 by 1 slowly, a year ago 1 by 1 slowly. I stopped to catch my breath in the middle of the stairs, and then suddenly I get a heart attack. Now I have a heart problem. But it started a long time ago. Everything started a long time ago, until the point where it crossed the line when now it starts to express itself and you now become conscious of it. So your stem cells, when you release them, they don't only go where you've got the problem that you're aware of. They just go and they repair stuff. So that question basically means, if I got rid of my problem, then I can stop. You do what you want. This is a free country. But once you understand what is working in the background, then you know, if something was good enough to help the problem, well, it's still good enough to take care of all the things that are not yet a problem. Okay, what's the best time to take Revitable and how? Honestly, there's no real best time. From a purely scientific standpoint, we do our studies, people arrive in the morning, they take the product in the morning. So what we have in terms of scientific documentation is in the morning on an empty stomach, but quite frankly, after 18 years of working with this product, people have taken it at all kinds of times, with meals, outside of meals, and it seemed to be working in any way. So I'll just say, really the best answer, take the product when it suits your lifestyle to make sure that you do take it. If you say, I don't take breakfast, and I don't like this in the morning, I would like to take it in the afternoon, then you do it in the afternoon. Because if I tell you in the morning, you'll forget it. So the best way, whenever it suits your lifestyle, to make sure that you take it. Can I take too much? I took at some point in the past, I'm not telling you to do this, I'm just giving you an example that no, you cannot take too much. I took the equivalent of 9 sachets a day. Wow. And nothing happens. I mean, after 9, the tip of my ear started to turn blue, but no, nothing happens. It's fine. You release stem cells, they go back to the bone marrow. Okay, at what age can you start? When I started this whole concept, this whole story, I thought young people have enough stem cells, it won't do anything. Very old people, let's say 90 and plus, they're not releasing a lot of stem cells, so it's not going, if you double your number of stem cells, you go from 1 to 2, it's not a big change. So I didn't think there would be a big effect. All I can say, 20 years into this, it's absolutely not true. Anybody where they are, you put more stem cells in circulation, you give the leverage to the body to use them. Okay, now, in conclusion, what is to me the most fascinating of all of this is that when I started to work with Jeunesse, Donna and Tar told me, make sure you go and you read about all the other products that Jeunesse has. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that not only you have great, top quality products, but there is an amazing synergy between Revitable and a lot of these products, to a point where I don't think I could have found a company that would be more suitable to have a product like Revitable. I didn't have the time before to go into the details, but when stem cells are released and they are in your bloodstream, one of the things that can prevent stem cells from seeing what are the tissues that are in need of repair and migrating in these tissues is oxidative stress, free radicals systemically in the body. So you want to suppress oxidative stress, that's what Reserve will do. So both products will work, but when you start to put them together, then you've got a great synergy between these two products. The way that your skin renews is that you've got a layer of skin stem cells at the bottom of the epiderm, and these stem cells transform into skin cells, move through the skin, and this renewal takes place every about 2-3 weeks. It's a very, very, very active process. The stem cells from your skin, where do they come from? They come from the blood. They migrate into the skin. They replenish this pool of stem cells in the skin. Luminesse contains peptides that will do many, many things. One of the things that it does is to attract stem cells from the circulation and make them proliferate better in the skin so that you enhance that pool of this regenerative pool in the skin. So you take Luminesse, it works. But now take Revita Blue, put more stem cells in circulation, then apply Luminesse, and now you've got way more stem cells to attract in the skin and support their proliferation. So you've taken Luminesse in the past, but it didn't do everything that you were hoping that it would do. Go back and try it again, but do it with Revita Blue and see how the two work in synergy.
So awesome.
Affinity. I won't have the time to go into the science. I'm sorry, AM, PM, thank you. She's listening. Why is she the only one listening?
You're listening.
So AM, PM. Again, something I didn't mention before, but it's important to realize one stem cell can become about between 1 and 5,000 tissue cells. So think of the potential magnification in the tissue if you release 5 million stem cells with the potential of becoming 20 billion tissue cells. And you do this 3 times a day, and you do this every day of your life. Once we understand this process of tissue repair, we've just uncovered probably one of the greatest metabolic demand of the body in terms of nutrients. So you want to have all the minerals and vitamins that the body needs to allow this process to really take place. Same thing applies for amino acids. Again, amino acids, we think of them, they're good for muscles, they're good for building tissue, proteins, and tissues, but there's a whole class of proteins in our body called enzymes, and they're essential for this whole process of amplification. So make sure you've got all the amino acids that the body needs. And you see how all these products are working together in a very interesting way. And the last one would Reveal. Reveal is essentially Luminesse for your scalp, because you've got the same thing in the skin of your scalp. You've got a layer of stem cells, but you have follicular stem cells, hair follicle stem cells. You've got melanocyte stem cells that give you the color. You've got these stem cells as well. So you put more stem cells in circulation, you apply Reveal, and it does the same thing. It attracts stem cells. We did a study a number of years ago because people started to report after taking a product that was a predecessor to Revita Blue. People were reporting their hair color was changing. And my first reaction was, stop saying these stupid stories. You know, of course it can be true. You know, just say what's true. If the product is good enough. And one day, one friend of mine came, he says, it's true, it's happening to me. And he showed me pictures, so we went into a lab of cosmetology, and we gave the product to 6 people, and we followed them for 6 months. All 6 of them at about 20% reduction of white in their hair. So just to show, stem cells do go from the blood, go into the skin, can replenish the skin. Reveal amplifies this process. So again, you've got a beautiful synergy. So in conclusion of all of this, all I will say, I've shared a lot with you, and I would say right now, forget the information per se, because you cannot regurgitate all of this if somebody is interested. My hope with this is that you've looked at this and then you can turn out to your people and say, wow, man, try this product. So that's really the message. If you want to pitch the product in a one-liner, I would simply say, men, they've just discovered there's a link between stem cells and the ability of your body to stay healthy. More stem cells in your blood means that your body has a greater ability to stay healthy. So you just need to put more stem cells in your circulation. That's what the product does.
Cool.
That would be kind of the one-liner to start to talk about the product. Good enough?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.